1 Samuel chapter 1 verses 1 through 20, and chapter 3 verses 1 through 10. There was a man from Ramathaim of the Zuphites in the hill country of Ephraim whose name was Elkanah. He was the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. He had 2 wives. One was named Hannah, and the other was named Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Every year this man went up from his city to worship and to offer sacrifices to the Lord of armies at Shiloh. Hophni and Phinehas, the 2 sons of Eli, were serving there as priests of the Lord. On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he gave portions of food to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters, but to Hannah he gave a double portion, because he loved Hannah, but the Lord had kept her from having children. Hannah's rival kept taunting her to make her miserable, because the Lord had kept Hannah from having children. Year after year, when Hannah went up to the Lord's house, her rival taunted her, so Hannah would weep and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah said to her, "Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why is your heart so sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons?" Once, when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Eli the priest was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's temple. Hannah's spirit was very distressed, and as she prayed to the Lord, she sobbed and wept many tears. She made a vow and said, "O Lord of armies, if you will carefully consider the misery of your servant and remember me, and if you do not forget your servant but give your servant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall ever touch his head." As she continued praying before the Lord, Eli was looking at her mouth. Hannah was speaking silently from her heart. Although her lips were moving, her voice could not be heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, "How long are you going to be drunk? Get away from your wine." Hannah replied, "No, my lord, I am a woman with a very troubled spirit. I have not been drinking wine or beer, but I have poured out my soul to the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless, wicked woman. I have been speaking like this because of my great misery and because of how I have been grieved." Then Eli answered, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel give you what you have asked for." She said, "Let your servant find favor in your sight." So the woman went on her way. She ate, and her face no longer looked sad. They got up early in the morning and worshipped the Lord. They then returned to their home at Ramah. Elkanah was intimate with Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel because she said, "I asked for him from the Lord." The boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli. The word of the Lord was rare in those days. Prophetic vision was not common. Now it happened that Eli's eyes had begun to grow dim, so that he could not see. Once when Eli was lying down in his place and God's lamp had not yet gone out, Samuel was lying down in the Lord's temple, where God's ark was. The Lord called Samuel, and Samuel said, "I am here." He ran to Eli and said, "I am here, since you called me." Eli said, "I did not call. Lie down again." So he went and lay down. Then the Lord called once more, "Samuel." So Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "I am here, since you called me." He answered, "I did not call, my son. Lie down again." Now Samuel had not yet experienced the Lord's presence, that is, the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel for the 3rd time. So he got up and went to Eli and said, "I am here, since you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the young man. So Eli said to Samuel, "Go, lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and once again lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there and called as he had the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 through 22. When Samuel was old, he appointed his sons as judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn son was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah. They served as judges in Beersheba. His sons did not follow in his footsteps. Instead, they turned aside to seek dishonest gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "Look, you are old, and your sons are not walking in your ways. Now appoint a king for us so that he can judge us like all the other nations." But in Samuel's eyes, their request to receive a king to judge them looked evil, so Samuel prayed to the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people regarding everything they have said to you, because it is not you whom they have rejected. I am the one they have rejected as king over them. This is just like all the actions they have taken from the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, right up to this present day. They have forsaken me and served other gods, and now they are also acting the same way toward you. So now listen to them. Nevertheless, warn them strongly and show them what the king who reigns over them will do." Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people, who had asked him for a king. He said, "This is what the king who reigns over you will do. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and with his teams of horses, and they will have to run ahead of his chariots. He will make them serve as commanders of 1,000 soldiers and as commanders of 50. He will assign some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest. He will assign some to make his weapons and the trappings for his chariots. He will take your daughters to serve as perfume makers, cooks, and bakers. He will take your fields, your vineyards, and your olive groves, even the best of them, and give them to his officials. He will take 1/10 of your seed and of the produce of your vineyards, and he will give it to the members of his court and to his officials. He will take your male servants, your female servants, your best young men, and your donkeys, and he will use them to do his work. He will take 1/10 from your flocks, and you will become his servants. In that day you will cry out because of your king whom you have chosen for yourselves, but the Lord will not answer you on that day." But the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel. Instead they said, "No, we want to have a king over us, so that we also can be like all the nations, and our king can judge us and lead us out to fight our battles." Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he repeated them in the hearing of the Lord. The Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to them, and appoint a king for them." So Samuel said to the men of Israel, "Each of you go home to your own city."